This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not.
All right, so the event has occurred, and now we're going to start the search. And we start with what we call the size up. And the size up is a 9-step process. And I think going back to some of the common challenges in schools, we have a real advantage here as search and rescue team members of the school site itself. And that is a lot of the information we already know. And those are things that we'll go through here today. So in the 9-step process, they are gather facts, assess damage, consider probabilities, assess the situation, establish priorities, make decisions, develop a plan of action, take action, and evaluate the progress. And so there is a checklist. We'll show that to you here. We'll even put it in so that you can download it if you like. It's from the CERT manual. But this is something that we should try to utilize as best as possible. And again, when we break into step 1, gathering the facts, well, we already know the layout of the campus. We know the building construction, right? We know the terrain. We know the occupancy. So generally, we know what time of day and the day of the week that this is, and we know what occurs during those time frames. So generally Monday through Friday, and then generally somewhere between 7 a.m. and 2 or 3 p.m. is our time frame. And of course, these things can occur when we have a sporting event, but the reality is most of our information is in this time frame period, and we know what is already occurring during those time periods. The other consideration around the facts is a lot of times we have to ask, are we dealing with children? Are we dealing with elderly? Are we dealing with able-bodied adults? Are there pets there? All of these questions, we have a good amount of knowledge about the people that are there, right? We know that they're students. We know that they're staff members. There's really not a lot of pets. There may be some service animals or something like that. And then the next couple of things are, what are the hazards? So are there chemicals? Well, we talked about that. Custodial closets, maintenance and operations, and then again, some kitchen areas will have some cleaning agents and things like that. However, most of the time, we're not going to be encountering them unless there's a science lab, for example. And then the weather. The weather is going to be the one variable that we need to kind of gather facts around. So we'll move on to the next point here, which is assessing the damage. And when we assess the damage, we typically may refer to the safety officer in our emergency operations plan. But as a search and rescue team member, you're going to want to assess that damage for yourself as well. And what we're looking to determine here is light, moderate, or heavy, or light, medium, or heavy. And the way we do that is we're going to make a lap around the building and look at the exterior of the building to determine the damage to the structure. So what do we see? And we'll get into more of what that looks like in an upcoming lesson here. But, you know, is it cracks or windows broken? Is it pretty much intact, or is it leaning? Has a side collapsed in? Things like this are going to tell us quite a bit. And then we want to communicate that out, of course. Next is step 3 is consider our possibilities. And really that comes down to, what is the situation? Has it stabilized? So we know in the immediate aftermath of an earthquake, a lot of times we have additional tremors, we have additional smaller quakes that occur, and this may compromise our search and rescue efforts, and it may also compromise those involved in there. So we have to determine, where are we in this scenario? Are we 2 hours out? Are we 10 minutes out? What's coming? And then we ask ourselves, what else could go wrong? The next basically 6 steps are going to go relatively fast, and that is assess your own situation. So again, this is one that we already know answers to. And the question is, what what tools do we have available to us, and how many staff members or search and rescue team members do we have available to us? And that one is relatively easy. We should be familiar with our search and rescue kit bag. We should be very familiar with the tools that we can get to inside our emergency bin, or if we can't get to them. And then we already know who makes up the search and rescue team. Now, that piece is going to be vital, because you may be searching for another search and rescue team member. They may not have made it out of the building. And you then have to ask yourself, can we add individuals to our teams to make that happen? And this is why cross-training is so important. But who can help you? Who can assist you? And what resources do you have? Remember, nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to help you. And this is why we have our own search and rescue team. It may be one where the event is extremely localized and we can call another school site to come and help. But then again, we have to make sure that they're up to snuff on maps and those types of things. The next is going to be establish our priorities. So what are our priorities? Can we do this safely? Can we get in? If it's heavy damage to a building, then we're not going to go into the building. We just do not have the tool set, and really we don't have the specialized skill set to do that, or to make multiple rescues in the event that our team gets trapped. And this occurs over and over and over again. Mexico City's they search and rescue went in. A bunch of people just jumped up and volunteered. 700 people were rescued, and 100 of the volunteers that went in to do the search and rescue died. And so it can happen to us, and we want to be very respectful of our situation. So establish, assess your own locations, establish your priorities. If it's light damage, again, that's why we call it light search and rescue, then certainly we should do that. We should get out the walking, the ambulatory, those people that are lightly injured. We should move them to safety ASAP. And then we should be able to determine what else do we need and what can we move forward with. So for example, if I cannot open my emergency bin, and now I don't have cribbing, and I don't have a lever, and I don't have a fulcrum point, and I don't have my kit bag, well, that's going to really affect how much I can do. Same thing if I don't have a respirator and there's a lot of dust going on, how much can I do? The next thing we're going to do is make decisions. So am I going to deploy? Am I actually going to invoke the search and rescue team? And these are all going to be decisions made on the fly, and you should be able to justify them. And so again, how we do that is by assessing the damage, understanding who's missing, and what our current scenario is. Now, I can tell you, in a school site, most of us are going to be willing to go the distance in order to save our students, and I think that's an admirable thing to do. However, we also have to be realistic about our capabilities and our skill sets. Okay. The next, which is step 7, is we're going to develop a plan of action. So how do we attack this? And like I said before, under the common challenges in schools, we have a great advantage. We know who is missing and potentially a good area where they may be located. And so that's going to give us a really good plan as to how we can approach this entire area. So if we know nobody was in the gym, we don't even have to go to that area first. That can be one of our last areas. If we know we only have one person missing, and generally they worked in the administration office, and they say that that's the last person that, or the last place that they were seen, then certainly that's where we would start our plan. If we have 3 people missing, who are those people and where are they potentially located? How close to us? And this will come down to our triage. So we'll look at triage and how we do triage, and remembering that we're trying to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The last thing we're going to do is actually implement our plan, and we're going to take that action, and we're going to go out and start the search and rescue. And then lastly, we're going to evaluate our progress. And that just means that this 9-step process is going to repeat. And again, I think as a search and rescue team member in a school, you got a great advantage because so many pieces are already known. You know the buildings, you know the terrain, you know the structural makeup of those buildings, and you also know who's on campus, who should be on campus, and you have counts. You have accountability, student accountability, staff accountability of who actually is out of the building, checked in, and is okay, and you have medical teams and things like that nearby. So we know a lot, and that's going to give us a great advantage in actually finding and rescuing people quickly.